Hi, Mithos here, and welcome to Time Chunk, where I restrict my access to a RuneScape game chunk for 8 hours. If I pass all of its objectives within this time, I unlock the chunk permanently. If I fail, I lose access to it. No time to waste, the clock is running, let's go. Welcome back to Time Chunk. In the previous episode we managed to unlock 3 more desert chunks, and by now we have roughly half the desert unlocked. This is how the map currently looks like. We are currently locked out of 5 chunks, 4 of them due to not having 90 mining, the last being the Calphite lair. That means the only chunk I really want to avoid is chunk 3, since I can't complete it and it does not give me access to anything. Chunk 6, Nada, will give me by far the most new unlocks. Chunk 2, with Giant's Foundry, will also be pretty good. The other chunks are all fine. There are 3 unlocks except for 10 and 13, which will give me access to a fishing net and thus fishing. Enough yapping, let's roll. Narda, here we come. Sitarid Abbey, you got to be kidding me. The one chunk I did not want to roll. Okay, let's go there. There's actually a few tasks here, here's a list of them. We need to push a boulder inside the lair with 45 strength, mine 5 clay for the easy diary, and steal a feather from the phoenix for the medium diary. I did all of those within the first few minutes of unlocking the chunk. The only other task is 90 mining for level 9 shooting stars, which I will not be able to do. And the reason why this is a bad chunk is because the only rocks that I can access here are clay rocks, which are a horrible experience. The gold rocks that I unlocked last episode give roughly 2 times the mining experience per hour than those clay rocks. And even shooting stars, which are completely AFK, give slightly more experience. Anyway, those are the 2 things that I need to do to progress to my mining level, and those are the 2 things that I have done the entire 8 hours in this chunk. Mine some gold, mine some shooting stars, mine some more gold again, and then mine some more shooting stars again. You get the idea. By doing this, I can get around 100k experience in 8 hours. I need 4 million more experience to level 90, so that would mean around 40 chunks of full-time mining. Luckily, there are also some chunks where I can make some faster progression. And who knows, if I unlock Nada soon, I might actually get a better pickaxe. Anyway, these are the stats at the end of my chunk. I only just managed to get a single mining level, and I'm level 76 mining now. And back to the chunk map we go. Well, all bad chunks are locked off for at least a couple of rolls now. Still really want Nada, chunk 5, or Giant's Foundry, chunk 2. All the other chunks are fine though, most of them are easy to complete, or have a better temporary mining training method. Let's roll. And the next chunk is Desert Battlefield, aka Giant's Foundry. Awesome. Really great. The chunk has been rollable since the first episode and I finally managed to get it. These are the chunk tasks. There's quite a few due to finally unlocking an anvil, as well as some drops from hill giants. There's a few I can already immediately check off. I've already burned T-clocks for example. I also already have a mithril kite shield from Calphites, a bronze square shield from goblins, and a willow shield from willow logs in Lumbridge. The tasks from the Giant's Foundry itself are notably absent, since I formally cannot finish the quest without wool, which I do not have in my chunks. However, I have some in the bank since my very first chunk, so I will be able to access it. Now the first thing I wanted to do was get 15 smithing to do the Sleeping Giants quest. This mainly involved me walking up the hill with full inventories of bronze bars and smithing them into arrow tips. After 15 smithing, I immediately went to do the Sleeping Giants quest, which is basically a tutorial for the minigame. Finishing the quest immediately got me to 26 smithing. This took me a bit over half an hour and I wanted to continue training smithing here. To do the minigame, you need to dump either bars or armor into the crucible. The quality of the material determines the length of the process as well as the experience, with better materials naturally yielding more experience. Of course, higher level materials are also more time consuming or expensive to obtain. Luckily, I have access to a plateleg shop in Alcarid that sells up to adamant armor. However, this is very costly, so it's time for some maths to determine a good strategy. Every sword in this minigame requires 28 bars worth of materials. In general, it is better to use a combination of materials. For example, using a combination of bronze and iron bars would be better than only using iron bars. And the best split is usually 14-14, so 14 bars worth of each. Plate legs count as 2 bars, so I would need 7 plate legs of each material type to fill the crucible. Starting at the bottom, a combination of 7 bronze and 7 iron plate legs would cost me around 3.1k. Next, a combination of iron and steel plate legs would cost me around 9k. Then, a combination of steel and mithril would cost me around 25.2k. And finally, combining mithril and adamant would cost me a whopping 63k. Luckily, Kovac, the hill giant that requests the swords, also gives you cash for each sword that you finish. The amount of cash depends on the quality of the sword, which is determined by the material and the molds that you set up at the start. You unlock molds as you level up. It is also possible to buy better ones with the points obtained from doing the minigame. Anyway, this is no exact specific number, but I was able to derive a rough estimate by combining info from the wiki with my own tests. From the bronze and iron combo, I could get around 8k. From the iron and steel swords, around 11k. For the steel mithril swords, around 20k. And the mithril adamant swords, around 30k. In short, the first 2 material combinations make me money, and the latter 2 lose me money. The mithril adamant combination is so expensive that it will never really be a realistic option anyway. I can make around 10 swords an hour, so the steel mithril option would cost me like 50k an hour. Since my best current moneymaker per hour, blackjacking menophites, is probably around that, it would effectively halve the experience. On the other hand, I do not really need to make money, so only doing the iron steel combo might be suboptimal as well. So I decided to do the iron steel and the steel mithril combos in such a way that it would roughly break even. Oh yeah, why focus on smithing in the first place? Well, there's 2 big reasons to do so. First, I will likely need to get to 88 smithing to leave the desert, and this is by far the best trading method available to me. Second, the reward shop, where you can spend points obtained through the minigame, has some nice rewards. Well, there is one reward in particular that will have a huge impact on the account. The Colossal Blade. This sword is stronger than a dragon 2-handed sword and will be my best melee weapon for a very long time. It also has an amazing passive effect that increases the max hit on bigger monsters. And yes, maybe there's this monster nearby where this can very much come in handy. You might have guessed it, the Kelphite Queen. She is a big girl. Anyway, unlocking the Colossal Blade costs 5000 Foundry reputation. And after some initial testing, I noticed that I could get around 700 to 800 reputation per hour with the iron steel combination swords. This means I should be able to get it within the 8 hours of this chunk. Other unlocks with Foundry reputation are molds, which increase both experience and also future reputation points per hour. Unfortunately, I did not have the luxury to unlock those, as I would run out of time to unlock the Colossal Blade. So grinding Giant's Foundry is pretty much the entire first 6 hours of the chunk, after which I got enough points to obtain the Colossal Blade. It felt a bit bad to do this even though it was not an actual chunk task. However, obtaining a curved bone, which is a 1 in 5000 drop rate of Hill Giant, is a chunk task. And with my current adamant scimitar, it would take over 30 hours to kill 5000 Hill Giants, assuming no time lost in between. With my Colossal Blade, it would take less than 22 hours. Thus, spending 6 hours for a Colossal Blade that saves me 8 hours for a chunk task, assuming normal drop rate, does seem like a good strategy. So, as the Colossal Blade grind got me to 60 for smithing, I made some mithril bars next. There were a couple of upgrades I wanted to make. A mithril axe, a mithril med helm, a mithril full helm, and a mithril chain body. I spent the rest of the bars making mithril grapple tips. I need these to make mithril grapples to grapple over the river Lum. And since these have a small chance of breaking, I wanted to make sure I had enough of them ready. Who knows how long it might take to roll another anvil. I spent the last hour and a half killing hill giants, hoping for the long bone and especially curved bone drops. I have to say, that Colossal Blade, it slaps. It feels so much stronger than the adamant scimitar. And the sound of the blade is also exactly as you might expect, a huge clunk sound. Because hill giants are also a little bit larger, occupying 2x2 game tiles, the passive effect is also helpful here. Anyway, I've been yapping enough this chunk. I did get a few giant keys, but no special bones, which does mean we failed the chunk. That being said, we made enormous progress in terms of levels, experience and gear upgrades. Getting smithing all the way up to 64 in a single chunk is crazy. And training combat will also be faster from now on. Back to the chunk map. I'll be honest, after the high of the previous chunk, I don't really care what I roll for the rest of the episode. Of course, my preference is still nada, chunk 4 now, but everything else is fine as well. Only one way to find out. Let's roll. And the next chunk is Agility Pyramid. Okay, interesting. Let's check it out. According to the chunk map, there are no tasks here. However, this is where an unknown training method comes into play, something I already hinted at a few episodes ago. Because this is the Agility Pyramid. The Agility Pyramid itself requires 30 agility, and I'm level 1, so no way for me to actually train there. But there are 2 sets of climbing rocks that you need to traverse to get to the pyramid, with Simon Templeton in the middle. The rocks on the right also require level 30 agility, so again there is no way for me to get to the pyramid. Yet, the rocks on the left, in order to get to Simon, have no level requirement. And it just so happens to be that going back up those rocks gives a single agility experience. Yes, you heard it right, 1 whole experience point for climbing down and then climbing back up again. So yeah, Settled and Frey may have had it rough at the 15 XP Nature Grotto Bridge, but this seems even more of a meme. For me, this essentially means it would trigger a level 70 agility grind, since I would need that level for the Polnavnic rooftop course. Luckily, the first actual reasonable agility training method I have unlocked is the Alcarid rooftop course at level 20. So I would need to get from level 1 to level 20 here at the 1 XP but 2 obstacle climbing rocks. How much experience is level 20? Well, 4470. How much experience per hour can I get here? I'm happy to say that you can actually not fail the climbing rocks, which means I was able to get a little bit over 400 XP per hour at top efficiency. This would make level 20 around an 11-hour grind, while I only have 8 hours in the chunk. That said, I do want to spend the full 8 hours training agility here. Hopefully I can lamp the rest later. So that's exactly what I did. Since it is in the desert, I did need to bring a whole lot of water skins, though I only needed to fill them once every couple hours. I hit level 8 agility after around 2 hours in. This is a relevant level, since that is a level I need to grapple across the river Lum. After getting the required smithing level and making the Mithos grapple tips in the previous chunk, we meet almost all requirements to cross the river. I only need 2 more fletching levels, a few crafting levels, and then a spinning wheel to create a crossbow string. The latter is only possible if I roll Lumbridge again. Anyway, after 8 hours of climbing up and down, I got to level 17.5 agility. With a lamp that I got in the chunk, it was exactly enough to get to level 18. These are the stats at the end of the chunk. Almost no experience, but still a fair bit of agility levels. Hopefully we can lamp it to level 20 before returning to this chunk again. And back to the chunk map for one last roll. It's been a pretty interesting episode already, so I feel like I can't have too strong preferences. Chunk 4, Narda, is still the most interesting one, followed by chunk 11, Lumbridge. Lumbridge would be the last chunk required to complete all requirements to grapple over the River Lum. I actually failed all chunks so far this episode, so any completable chunk would be nice as well. Anyway, time to roll. And the final chunk of this episode is Sofanam. Unfortunately, I cannot actually enter the city, so there's only a very small part of the chunk I can access. Let's check it out anyway. The main thing I wanted to see in this chunk is whether the chunks of Necropolis, where the Tombs of a Mascot is located, would be rollable. However, this did not seem to be the case. I can only go there from the chunk east of Sofanam, but that has a mining site triggering the level 90 mining grind again. The requirements to access Sofanam itself is having a cat, which means completing Gertrude's cat around Farrock. This will probably be a year away though, possibly even more. Anyway, for now this chunk has nothing interesting and is actually automatically completed. Nice to at least have more of the map unlocked this episode. Because there is nothing to do, it is back to the same activities as at the start of the episode. Training mining by a combination of shooting stars and mining gold. And that is exactly what I did for pretty much the entire 8 hours. One interesting thing I can actually do now is train crafting. Since I passed 40 smithing in the chunk with Giant's Foundry, I can make gold ores into gold bars. And since I have access to molds, I can make jewelry. In essence, I could train all the way up to level 70 for diamond amulets. But they are currently not very useful since I lack the magic level to enchant them. The most relevant level in the short term is level 10, since that is needed to make a crossbow string. The only other way to train crafting is in the temporary Lumbridge chunk by spinning wool, so this is certainly a better alternative. Anyway, I spent the last couple of minutes in the chunk melting the gold ores into bars and then into golden amulets. These are the ones that give me the most XP per bar. This got me to level 18 crafting. These are the stats at the end of the chunk. Not much changed other than those few crafting levels and some mining experience. Overall, in this episode, we have gained an insane amount of smithing levels as well as experience and obtained an amazing weapon upgrade in the Colossal Blade. So I'm definitely happy with how things are progressing. Time's up. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay updated on my progress, like and subscribe. If you have any questions or tips, leave them in the comments below. Have a nice day and see you next time.